Fairway Live. It looks like we had a little bit of a disruption in our intro. Shall we try it again? Let's give it a try. I love the intro. All right, there we go. I love that intro. It's like my favorite. I feel like, I'm important now. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome again to Lafaya Live. We're here every Saturday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Today, I have with me my panel of very wonderful ladies, and we will be talking about autism spectrum disorder today. How are you all, ladies?
Good. How are you?
I am fantastic. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll have you all introduce yourselves, and Lia, I'll have you start, Sarah, and then Casey.
Sounds good. My name is Lia McCabe. I'm the founder of AutismWish. We basically are a charity initiative where we like to grant gifts to autistic children, and we're currently seeking sponsors for our annual Christmas drive. So that's at autismwish.org. And I am also the host of the podcast Embracing Autism.
Oh, hi, Angela from Florida and Angel from Florida. Hello. Okay, Lia, thank you so much. And now, can I ask you again? Because I do want the guests to kind of hear what what it is you're doing with that, because it's so important, and we're getting so close to Christmas. So can you give them that website again just one more time?
Yeah, so the website is autismwish.org, and we're basically doing a gift drive for autistic children to provide them with sensory and therapeutic gifts for Christmas. And we're currently seeking sponsors. We usually do about $20 per kid donation minimum, and you can find all that information on the website.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so Sarah, now go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Sarah Stelmack-Brown. I am an autism mom. I have two sons on the spectrum, one very high functioning and one who requires a significant amount of support. I was a nurse's aide until very recently, and now I'm a stay-at-home autism mom. I'm also the host of the podcast Caregiver Chronicles. We discuss being a caregiver in multiple aspects, being a caregiver for a child on the spectrum, being a caregiver for people with Alzheimer's, elderly, disabled, any aspects or facets of caregiving. I like to talk about.
That's so awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, Casey, your turn.
Hi, I'm Casey Tabolt. I am a parenting coach for moms with neurodivergent children. I am the voice and the brain, I guess, behind Parenting the Spectrum on Facebook.
Yes, very awesome. Now, how do they find you on Facebook?
They can go to Facebook/Casey Tabolt Coaching. I also believe it comes up if you do at Parenting the Spectrum. I'm on Instagram at Casey Tabolt Coaching, and I also have my website, CaseyTabolt.com.
Okay, very important, parents out there. She has a parent support community, so make sure that you check her out because they're doing important stuff. Now, I love this group because each of you ladies are advocates for children and people who are neurodivergent and on the autism spectrum. Okay, and I absolutely love you because that's closest to my heart, because I've been fighting for years to make sure that the treatment of our children who are on the spectrum is, where it needs to be, where we're kind of helping them to become the best them they can be and not expecting that they be someone that they're not, right? Okay, so I want to ask each of you how you got into the work it is that you're doing today. Like, what was your biggest motivator? And so I'll have Casey. I had to go last, Casey, so you can go first this time.
Okay. So my story is kind of long and roundabout, but the gist of it was I suffered really bad burnout, ended up having a medical trauma. I came out of that really focusing on self-care, and that led me into coaching, and I was doing motherhood coaching for self-care. And then my son was diagnosed with autism, and I realized that all the things that I had been struggling with and really shaming myself around and not feeling good enough as a mom were because I was parenting a neurodivergent child and I didn't know it. And so I got into this parenting program through the Jai Institute for Parents, and now our whole life has changed and opened up. So now I teach with what I learned, and it's fantastic.
Right. Absolutely wonderful. Thank you. Okay, Sarah, how did you get into the work that you're doing today?
So, my son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. He's 6 now, and the pandemic, being a healthcare worker and a parent, and just being a healthcare worker is hard during the pandemic. Being a parent during a pandemic is hard. Add autism to that, and it was just a recipe for breakdowns. I probably had maybe 5 or 6 breakdowns just this past summer, and sought treatment for it, but really wanted to share my experiences because I know I was not the only person going through it, and had people actually tell me when I would share my experiences, oh, we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to make things sound bad. And I kind of used that as my motivation to my rebellious side, kind of, to go out and make sure that I was sharing my story with the world, because when I did share those stories, I had friends reach out to me and say, I'm going through a similar situation. I can't talk about it. So I want to make sure every single autism parent out there, every single parent of anybody out there who's going through whatever, anybody caring for anybody, has a place where they can share their ugliest, hardest days, doesn't feel guilty about it, and has a safe place to go when they're having a breakdown.
Oh, that's so very awesome. Breaking the isolation is so very important for our parents out there who are raising, children on the spectrum, neurodivergent children. I just leave it that way, okay? Because there are similar experiences for them all, right? And
Yes.
so that is so wonderful to break because there is like this hidden, right? This hidden expectation that we should just kind of smile through life and pretend like everything's okay all the time and not make other people uncomfortable with how uncomfortable we are, right? And it's so important. And I mean, it's completely and totally like the first to do as far as self-care is concerned is to break the isolation and speak out and share what's going on with you. Okay, so go ahead. Go ahead, Leah.
Oh, what was the question?
Oh man, I went too long. How did you get started doing what you're doing today?
Oh, okay. So basically, the reason I started AutismWish and everything that I've been doing is because I have 2 children, both of which are diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. And when I started looking for resources for them, it was really difficult to find things. And the things that there were excessive waiting lists, like year-long waiting lists, or lottery systems where it's just luck whether or not you're able to get any sort of funding. So I started finding that there was this big gap that needed to be filled and needed to be bridged. So I started looking into what I could do. So I decided to take things into my own hands. And my husband and I kind of put our heads together and created AutismWish, so that it would be kind of just like an easy way to be able to connect sponsors with children and fulfill some of their wish list items. And then the Embracing Autism podcast came about because I was one of those parents that had a lot of questions at first, and you go on Facebook and you find all these support groups, and I kept seeing the same questions over and over and over. And initially I had those questions, but then I found that I had the answers because of all my experience and all the trial and error. And I felt like instead of individually just having to go in and constantly answering the same question and over, I was like, let me just put this in a podcast, and then people can listen to it anywhere, everywhere, however often they want. So that's basically how I started all that.
That is so awesome. Okay, now as advocates and coaches, teachers, right, etc., what would you say is the best tool that you've either created or used or heard of to assist with better functioning for those on the autism spectrum?
So a tool that I have created is the student introduction portfolio that I put together for autistic children, but it can honestly be used for like all special needs children. And it's basically like a little toolkit that you can present to your teacher on the first day of class. And it gives the teacher all the information they need to know about your child in terms of what are their sensory needs, a little bit about them, what do they like, what are their interests, and it kind of humanizes them, gives the teacher an ability to really like get to know the kid without just saying like, oh, this person's special needs and I'm just going to do what the school says. Like you get a little more say in it.
That is so awesome. Now, where can people find this tool?
So all you got to do is go to my website, autismwish.org. If you scroll to the bottom of the page, there's a sign up for the newsletter. As soon as you sign up, it'll automatically be sent to your inbox within 5 minutes.
Oh, that's such an awesome tool. Oh my goodness. Okay. So now, Sarah, Casey, would you like to share? It could even be just a tip and trick, that you know.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Casey.
I think the biggest thing for me and the thing that I struggled with the most with my son was the emotional regulation piece, like the outbursts, the aggression. So the biggest tool for me that I work with clients on is how to co-regulate with your child. How do you find your own calm so that you can share that with your child instead of getting swept away in their chaos? And there's all kinds of different tools, that I can't take credit for that play into that. But strengthening the vagus nerve, and there's lots of sensory calming things. I forget the doctor who does it, but there's a figure 8. And that's one of the things that I talk about in my Facebook group, that it's wonderful for children, especially if you're having bedtime struggles, just to do that figure 8. It hits a lot of the EFT tapping points around the eye, and it brings them right down.
Oh, that's so awesome. Now we're going to have to talk. We're going to have to visit that a little bit more, because I know that you do some of the trauma work. So we have to I definitely want to make sure we introduce that. But Sarah, what's a good tip, trick, tool?
The biggest tool for me and my family, my son is an elopement risk, and I was not too long ago this afternoon at a get together, and a woman had a autism love needs to know words sweater on. So I started speaking to her about my child, and turns out she has a child who is younger than mine, who is also an elopement risk. GPS tracker. I know it sounds so basic and crazy, but the peace of mind I get having one on my child when he leaves the house, I can see where he is. I can call in if there is a problem. Also, for my house, we have double locking deadbolt doors with the keys, because he learned how to unlock the deadbolt. And I know it just sounds so like minimal, but knowing he is safe inside for me is such a relief, because then I can sit down for a minute and have a cup of tea and just breathe.
Yeah.
The fear of him running out is just too much. That locks. I'm a big fan of locks. I know it sounds silly, but it's what I need. It's
See,
what
that's one of those. That's one of those things that is a huge deal. Like, it sounds like a small deal, but for peace of mind, anything, by the way, that's for peace of mind is a huge deal. So parents out there, I'm going to say it to you, Sarah, I'm going to say it to the rest of you out there, never downplay the value, the wonderful value of your peace of mind, because yes, you are important enough for your peace of mind to be considered one of the most important things. The more peace of mind that you have, the better your internal experience is going to be, and your experiences with your children will be better if you're having those better internal experiences. Right? Because they draw from you. And so, but I'd like to share just with that question, I just thought about social stories. I don't know if you guys have ever written some of those out for some of the kids, but it's basically they kind of write a story about some portion of their day, maybe an area that they're having struggles with. It could be social anxiety. It could be, it could be kind of ordering things and putting things in order, or tidiness, chores, those kind of things. But social stories can be very helpful for our kids, because it kind of gives them a concrete idea of how you manage, some of that, putting, actually doing things, sequencing things so that they don't have as many struggles. So I really like the social stories. And my absolute favorite is just making sure, and I love Leah's tool, making sure that the teachers are aware of what's going on with your child, and not just trusting that, if they have an IEP or 504, that the teachers have maybe had time to read them. So having other handy little tools, and as a parent yourself, kind of going in and being proactive and talking, making sure that you're putting your face in front of each teacher, can be also very helpful as well. Okay. So now this question is a big one, probably a big one, and then the ugly one, for us sometimes. What is the worst myth that you have ever heard about autism?
I can jump on that one because I've actually just started conversations with these lately. But basically, the worst one that I've heard is essentially that once your kid is diagnosed with autism, like that's basically it, and like there is no like improvement ability, or there's no way, like if your kid's nonverbal, they won't be able to communicate. Period. And I'm like, communication isn't all verbal. Like, so that's the one that I always have issues with.
Okay, no, that's one of them. Okay.
One for me is, I see a lot of parents, or I hear a lot of parents or people just in general, oh, well, he doesn't look like there's anything wrong with him. Autism doesn't have specific physical characteristics, and I hate that. And it's just like, that's the biggest thing for me. That one really gets to me. Also, not a big fan of the R word. When people say everybody on the autism spectrum is, completely disabled, or everybody on the autism spectrum is like Rain Man or Sheldon, if you get the reference from Big Bang Theory. It's not. It's a spectrum. There's so many places that a person can fall below average intelligence, and far above. It's a spectrum.
Right. And I mean, and really, it's just like everybody else. They're humans with a specific diagnosis, and there are some that are higher functioning, just like the rest of the humans, some that are lower functioning, and so it's just, very annoying. But sorry, don't let me get on my soapbox.
I was about to get on my soapbox.
Well, go ahead. I'll hop off.
One that gets my goat, as they say, is that people with autism don't have empathy. And it's not true. It's just flat out not true. And in fact, what I'm finding more and more as I work with moms, and as I dive into this with my own son, he's always been extremely empathetic. And I feel like that is actually the case, is that they're so empathetic and they're so in tune with the nonverbal part of what people are communicating, how they're actually feeling, that then they almost have a defense mechanism, or they, so they can seem like they're not expressing empathy in a neurotypical way, but it's not that they don't feel empathy. It's that they don't know how to express it in a way, like they're like, something's going on with you. I'm catching your vibe. I don't know what to do with this. So they shut down, or they, they overreact, or any of those things, but it's not because they lack empathy.
Oh man, Casey, you're speaking my language. You had me over here. My leg was shaking. I was like, because that's my one. Because, and that's one of the first things I started to address with parents when I started working with autism spectrum disorder. I'm like, it's not that they don't feel what's going on with other people. They're feeling into what's going on with everyone else. So they're overwhelmed. And once that sensory overload hits, then sometimes there's a struggle with trying to really express that. So like you said, there's a shutdown or there's an act out, right? And so it's, oh my goodness. Okay, so you guys, I could talk about that one by itself for like hours, because that drives me crazy. That drives me absolutely crazy. Now, one of mine is that people on the spectrum can't make friends. That they don't ever have friends. And here's the thing. And if they do have friends, then sometimes people will say, oh, well, they're not on the spectrum then, right? Oh my goodness, it drives me absolutely nuts. and so yeah, that's one of mine. I don't like it.
Yeah, that social aspect, because my son is the same way. I mean, he's high functioning, but he's also like, He's very outgoing, and he'll introduce himself to strangers, and he'll carry on full-blown conversations with adults, and he goes and goes and goes. He doesn't know when to stop. Like, you know, so it's not that he can't connect, and it's not that he's withdrawn. It's that, you know, the rules of engagement aren't as clear to him.
Right. Now, have you guys ever run into, just, you know, as advocates, have you ever run into people, you know, claiming that a child was non-compliant or, you know, or withdrawn or, you know, being defiant, you know, those kind of things in certain environments? And how did you address the, you know, the kind of these accusations from people who misunderstood how the kids were reacting?
Honestly, like I've seen this occur more with ADHD. I've had more experience with that rather than autism in terms of that specific behavior, but it's the same outcome. And a lot of autistic kids have ADHD. So basically what I've seen is, for example, a kid being sent to the principal's office literally daily, and being said that, oh, they're disrupting the class, they're misbehaving, they're a bad kid. And it wasn't that. It was that there were no accommodations put in place. And without the accommodations, there was no way to address anything that they were experiencing. So I feel like a lot of times, if you don't understand something, the default is, oh, you're just bad.
Yeah.
You just need to understand what's going on.
Oh my goodness. Now that is worth kind of putting in quotes and putting, you know, and when you don't understand something, when a lot of people, when they don't understand something, will identify it as just bad behavior. Right. And what we want to do is just caution people out there. And this is including parents, because sometimes parents, even though they know the diagnoses, they will still label their children's behaviors as bad behaviors. And it comes more from not knowing what to do with their children than it does with, you know, because it's not based in any truth. As a matter of fact, oftentimes we aren't frustrated by behaviors unless we know that there can be other behaviors, so that they've had different reactions in the past. So then we're looking at the behavior now and we're like, well, I mean, why is it that you were able to, you know, do this at this time and not able to do it at this time, right? And, you know, as parents and advocates now, and of course those who have been learning for a very long time, it does depend on the situation, right? And so,
yeah. I was just going to say, and you know, that is the reason why when I put together my student introduction portfolio, on one of the pages, I have this big quote that says, remember, behavior is communication. So
yes.
I just want people to know, like, whenever you see a behavior and you don't understand it, it's not necessarily just the kids trying to get away with something. They're trying to communicate something with you. And it's up to you as the adult in the situation to investigate and figure out what it is.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Another quote.
I was waiting to butt in there. I was like, yes, all behavior is communication.
Another quote moment.
Yes.
Write that down. Behavior is communication. Even if you think the behavior is like manipulative or whatever word you want to put on it, all behavior is communication. Remember, no person wants to be disliked. It doesn't matter who that person is. We are not born that way. If there's something happening and it seems like they're upsetting to you, then there's something going on behind that. And it's very important, like Lia and Casey said, to investigate and to find out what they're trying to communicate to you, as opposed to taking offense, right? Do not personalize.
And all behaviors come from feelings and needs. Like, I wish if I could just put a billboard up for parents for that. Like, anytime you see anything, feelings and needs. What are they feeling right now? What are they needing? If we're feeling joy and love, what is that coming from? Maybe it's coming from our need for connection is being met. Yes. If we're feeling angry or sad, what is that coming? Maybe we have an unmet need for connection. There's always a feeling and there's always a need beneath every behavior.
Oh my goodness. That's so good. And it's just some of the quick little acronyms that I want people to remember. Okay. Check-ins. This is a self check-in and an other check-in, and they get it for you. The first one is from a 12-step program, but hungry, angry, lonely, tired can be a really good. And now they have thirsty in there as well. Right. Or with the H is HALT, halt. right? And I like to say hungry, and I like to say angry or anxious, right? Because anxious falls in quite often. And people oftentimes with autism don't recognize their anxiety, because they're kind of, it's kind of like more of a feeling that's overtaking, as opposed to something that you can see or something that they can express, right? It's just, right, a feeling. But hungry, angry, or anxious, lonely, which to kids is bored, and tired. If we do check-ins like that and the reason I say for self and others is because if we're feeling any of those things, then our children or whomever it is we're dealing with, especially on the spectrum, the hypersensitive, neurodivergent children, they are emotion soaking. They are sponging all of that in and multiplying it times 10 to 100 to 1,000, depending on how their day is going. And so it's very important to recognize first for ourselves that what we're experiencing, so that we can at least acknowledge that maybe how our internal, what's going on in our internal is impacting them, but then also what they may be experiencing based on whether or not they're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, right? And I have other acronyms, but that I love. But do you guys have any other like little, because these are like the little tricks, right? Any other little tricks like that to help children? And I would say even, how about combating social anxiety? What are some of your tips and tricks for children who are experiencing social anxiety?
Well, I just want to pop in and say one thing real quick about the HALT thing. When people in general, but especially neurodivergent children, are in that anxious place, like this in my program, this is where we talk about being on the thermometer. So there's a green zone, a yellow zone, and a red zone. Well, when are you just starting to get anxious? Are you starting to get twitchy? Are you starting to get anxious? And then, what does it go into? Is it tight shoulders? Is it you're not taking a deep breath? Is that when the stimming starts? And then if you get to the red, it's like, hold the phone, and you're in full on meltdown or overwhelm or whatever. And it's really important for us, if we're going to help our children with emotional regulation, to understand where we are on that thermometer.
Oh man. Okay. So what do you guys think about that emotional regulation piece as it relates to stimming? That anxiety. Yeah. What do you guys think are the biggest contributors to stimming behavior?
So I will say just quickly, because that reminded me of something. My daughter, who is 3, she has been having a lot of meltdowns and anxiety lately. And one tip that I have been able to bring up now is something that I had a breakthrough with her just today, and it almost brought me to tears. I have been working with her when she is having these meltdowns to try to do deep breathing, which is hard for a child. So what I taught her is to smell the flower, blow the flower. And I give her a little fake flower, a little pretend flower, and she'll go and she'll inhale through her nose and blow and make a wish. Inhale and blow and make a wish. And today she was having a meltdown, and all by herself, I saw her and she started to smell and blow. And I was like, oh my gosh. So with 2 and 3-year-olds, you can still teach them these techniques. Just do it through like creative play means.
Oh my goodness, that's so awesome.
There's a book called Breathe Like a Bear. It's like $10. It's on Amazon, and it's chocked full. I think it's got like 100 of those exercises, or maybe there's 50. But there's like blowing on your cup of soup, and there's hot chocolate, and there's like making big colorful bubbles. And it's such an accessible way to get children to do breath work. And breath work is huge for developing the vagus nerve and emotional regulation. And you're so right, Leah, because that, like, you think that like, oh, I don't know if they're ever going to get this. I don't know. And, maybe they get in a moment where they don't have access to that, where they can't think to calm themselves down. Right. But man, if they can do it 1 out of every 10 times or 1 out of every 20, it's only going to get easier as they get older.
Yeah. And now one of the ways to keep that ball rolling when they do learn a new skill is it's part of my 4 steps, but it's getting into that 4th step. It's when they do have a hard time. So the 4th step is my 3 R's. So it's recognize, reinforce, and repeat. So the recognize and reinforce is you're recognizing the small step changes. So even when they have a tough time, okay, then you're still bringing in that recognition of the small step changes, even if it happened before. So say the time before they were in that 1 out of 10 times they got it, right? That's that when they're in that 2 out of 10 times where they didn't quite get it, right? And then you could say to them, oh, okay, you know what? Had a really hard time today. Last time you used this. How were you able to get to that? Kind of thing. This actually helps them understand that they can get it, because what will happen is our kids will feel a lot of shame. They'll feel, embarrassed, especially as they get older. But younger and younger, they feel embarrassed. I don't know what's going on now, but I see embarrassed 2 and 3 year olds. I don't think I saw that years ago, but it's so true now, right? Because their kids are just so smart, or they're just exposed to so much information. Who knows, right? But one of the best ways to kind of keep moving them in the direction that you want them to go is to always hold on to, as opposed to focusing in on the problem behavior. You focus in on those behaviors when they were successful. So then you're kind of inching them. You're putting energy into the thing that you want more of, right? That's just one of my little techniques for kind of keep inching them closer to the mark.
Yes.
But yeah. Okay, so Sarah, anything that you've used with your children that was just like so helpful and useful to you? Oh, my timekeeper's coming on. Oh shoot, is that 30 minutes already?
Oh.
What happened? Okay, Sarah. Okay, just really quickly, any tips or tricks that you?
I can give a good example today, real quick. I was with my son. We were at a just like a get together, and it was outside. There was a pool. I didn't know if the pool was going to be open or not, so I didn't bring him his bathing suit. He's 10. He was furious. Mom, why didn't you bring my bathing suit? If I can't go in the pool, I want to leave. This get together was on a farm with like 30 acres of woods. I said, you know what? Let's me and you go for a walk in the woods, and just going for a walk in the woods and redirecting, grounding, looking at trees, looking at nature. I know it sounds kind of hippie, but it was maybe 10 minutes we spent in the woods just walking on paths and looking at we found different like mushroom plants and wild blueberry plants and a rock quarry back there. And I'm like, and he was so excited to see these like cool things and just that connecting with nature. And that's one of my favorite things, that and the 5 senses, having him go outside. 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, or 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. Getting them out, that 5 senses. From my youngest son, he can't communicate those feelings, so deep pressure is really good for him. Just letting him ride his stim out. Unless it's a self-harm stim. If it's head banging, I will put a pillow in front of his head. If it's just flapping or jumping, let him do it. If it's biting, we've replaced with a chew. I won't let him do any stim that harms him or anyone else. Any other stim, I just let him ride it out. But my oldest son, who doesn't stim but gets, like on the thermometer, he'll go from green to red. And getting him outside and in nature and just reminding him of his senses and coming back to himself that just works really well for him.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so Sarah, seriously, some excellent tips, like getting them engaged with the 5 senses. Everybody, please be writing this stuff down. And just replacement behaviors, or replacement, as opposed to becoming nervous about it. Say some parents would become nervous. They feel anxious if they didn't bring their child's bathing suit. They're like, oh no, here comes a meltdown or tantrum. And as opposed to going into that space and causing yourself a lot of emotional internal turmoil, which they'll draw from, then we just look at something else. Let's get them involved and engaged with something else. So these are fantastic tips and tricks that you gave today, ladies. You are so awesome. This was such an awesome panel. Oh my goodness. There is no way you watch this out there without getting something that's going to help you in your future, that's going to improve your interactions. So thank you all so much for joining us today. I can't believe that 30 minutes went by so quickly. Please join us again next week. Next week, we will be moving into trauma and trauma experiences and those who work in that particular area. I hope that you have a chance to join us then. Until next time, make sure to stay you and make sure to stay true and engage the Lafaya way. Have a good one.